Hello, everybody. Welcome to UGASports.com. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Dayne Young and Jim Donnan, the latter of which is the former Georgia Bulldogs head coach. The number one reason everybody's tuned in. We appreciate all of our people who are in the comment section there. We shout out to Captain Guy Bob and all the folks who normally jump into the chat. We appreciate them joining us this Tuesday midday. It is a great day at UGA Sports. Just got some great news about a national hire at Rivals.com. My buddy Sam Spiegelman's coming back to join Rivals. I'm so happy. Bouncing off the walls. We've got more support coming in our Southeast region recruiting. And we had a great recap of the scavenger hunt. So there's a lot of stuff at UGASports.com you need to read. And the dog vent's happy. Why would the dog vent be happy? Well, I mean, they're happy because they got Kirby Smart as the head coach, and they can tune into Coach Donnan today to hear Coach Donnan talk about Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldog program. But they're also happy that a current Georgia player, is suing his former team that he was committed to, Jaden Rashada. The news broke this morning. The former Miami commit, then Florida commit, then Arizona State Sun Devil, who is now transferred and come to the University of Georgia to be a Georgia quarterback, is suing Billy Napier, a top booster over there, and their collective for that $13.8 million NIL deal that he was supposed to get that they reneged on. So it's been very fun kind of reading through the comments on the dog event. You have to be a member at UGASports.com. These are the funniest people you will ever find anywhere. So long-winded story. It is a long-winded intro. It is a great day to be a member of UGASports.com. And Coach, I got to get your thoughts on this. This lawsuit is wild. I mean, it's different.
Kind of puts a perspective on some of the things that we've discussed on our show every week. That the reality is there's plenty of stuff out there as far as what's going on with these different NILs and different collectives. He was probably, along with the guy at Tennessee, one of the first ones that we saw so much information on about what perspective as far as money they were going to get. So it's going to be Gators got to hope they take that case to some trial where Steve Spurrier's a judge or something like that.
That's the only saving grace.
So,
let me give the timeline of this just as I read. I haven't read fully through everything in the lawsuit, but I skimmed the second half and read most of the first. So essentially, Jaden Rashada is a hotshot quarterback prospect. Everyone knows that part. It was widely publicized at the time, and at least from his side in this lawsuit, confirmed that Miami had offered him $9.5 million as a part of an NIL package to go to the Miami Hurricanes. Florida, seeing that, boosted the offer over $11 million and had one booster in particular who started a separate collective at Florida to be able to funnel money into things that way. And he did some of this through an automotive group that he ran. So this is the classic story of college football of big booster fan that's super successful and has money and a business. He uses that to help his college football team. That's a story as old as time in college football. But in this, it's saying that Florida offered this money. It was enough to induce Rashada to flip his commitment. He did that within a month. The money did not show up from Florida. All the agreements that were made were not happening. And so he turns around and he says, I just turned down $9.5 million from Miami, and now I'm not even going to get what I wanted at Florida. He ends up at Arizona State and now transfers to Georgia, which is listed in this. He is now a resident of Athens, Clarke County, and that is a part of this suit here.
So I saw in the suit, it says the word for this is fraud and fraudulent intent. So he's suing for fraud. I got to wonder, I don't say he has a case. I'm no lawyer. I know nothing about stuff like that. It can be thrown out immediately. But I wonder what kind of damages you expect, what sort of recompense you're expecting to get from something like that. And, Coach, I'll turn this to you. Dayne, you can try to answer that one. But, Coach, my question for you would be, how does this look for Florida? If you're a kid thinking about going to Florida and you see this lawsuit, you got to be like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm sure Florida's in damage control right now, talking to kind of like they were in at the end of the signing date when all those people were jumping off the ship. Remember that? And they had one of those top 10 classes and ended up being. But the one thing that's really saying in this, if you look down at the bottom of that, you see the lawyer that's repping him, Rusty Harden. Now that guy doesn't go around for just anything. This guy's a big time lawyer. I'm talking about. You're talking about the Kirby Smart type guy of lawyers. As far as Kirby Smart's the best coach, this guy's right up there with as far as a lot of the cases he's handled. So I'm sure he would get some of the percentage of it. But the fact that he's the one that's repping him, got to think they got a case. And it's just so we've seen it when you go into court with certain guys, they just have a presence about them and they know how to work the system. And this guy, from all I've understood over the years, has had, you might look him up, Dayne, and read some of the people he's repped. But this is definitely going to be kind of a Christopher Columbus deal, I think. You know what I mean by that? You're setting the discovering America. Now you're going to be discovering what's the deal on NIL. I mean, who's liable and who's got to pay, and checks in the mail, but where in the hell is it? You know what I mean? So,
well, and Coach, that's the part I find interesting is one, all these you've been saying for a couple of years now that the money that's being mentioned in NIL is astronomical, and so how much of that is being fulfilled? And so we've talked about what Georgia's doing, what other people are doing, and so like that part is really interesting. The other thing, and Roddy, I mentioned this to you before the show, Miami here is now having its dirty laundry in NIL shared publicly. And some of those Miami money people are crazy. And so
you're nuts.
They were eager to blow this thing up.
We've seen it over the years with Miami, some of the things that have happened there. And, all of a sudden, these kids used to be, hey, Coach, can you help me get a deal on a car? Or Coach, can I get a summer job? Or can you help me out with tickets? Now, I need a realtor for the house I'm getting ready to buy. Could you help me get a realtor, Coach?
Yeah.
It's unreal.
Well, MG has a question here in YouTube. It says, Roddy, can you explain why Kirby Smart would bring in a kid who has a money dispute with the rival? And I think that's a good question. And in the lawsuit, it says that Jaden's decision to attend Georgia this year was not in response to any promises, assurances, or offers connected to NIL money. He had learned his lesson. So that, plus, Rashada had to go talk to Kirby Smart to say, I'm about to do this, file this lawsuit, and make these headlines. It's going to have ramifications for you. Is that cool? And obviously, Kirby Smart didn't step in the way of anything.
Well, you don't know that.
Fair. That's fair.
I mean, he could, more than likely he told him, but hey, I don't want to be argumentative, but I mean, if you know for sure that was part of the deal coming in, hey, Kirby, I'm not going to come in for much because I'm going to hit the Gators hard. And Kirby said, yes, sir. Hey, no, but that didn't happen. But,
well, I guess my assumption, Coach, is that if you come in, you wouldn't want to blindside your coach with this.
Right. When you read the one thing that was really important here is that Kirby made sure, and I talk, Bobo, all those guys, that this kid's coming in here from, and you read the stories from his dad, he's coming in here from a development standpoint, thinking down the road, as he had to, knowing that there's, not only one guy ahead of him, several guys ahead of him. So, and we've talked ad nauseum here about Kirby's not going to upset the apple cart on the NIL for pay guys more than ones he got coming. Look at the guys playing in Nebraska now, Raiola. I mean, so, but a lot of conjecture back and forth. We can go back and forth on that, but you would hope that there was some kind of that was knowledgeable here. But Kirby's not one that really lets anything come up that he doesn't know about. So, but it's going to be just by the nature of it. You got a lawsuit of that magnitude. I guarantee you, it's going to hit the Sports Center. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, probably,
ESPN's already reported on it. So
I mean, so it's just.
Well, and imagine this world where there's this NIL money out there. The courts and the federal courts are trying to determine if conferences and colleges will be the ones to pay players directly from athletic departments. That's kind of happening. What if Florida is having to pay between $11 and $15 million over the next year to Georgia's quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I would be cold-blooded, but I mean, you got to think that the booster's the number one guy. He's the one that's supposed to have fronted it, and I guess he had something come up with one of his companies or something. Reading through it, I just scanned it there, but I think we've hit it pretty good here. But the biggest thing for us is it's going to be landmark decision here. That's for sure. I mean.
Well, the other thing, and this, I'm not just completely praising Georgia fluently on this, but we said for a while Georgia's been more conservative with some NIL things than other schools. I think this is one of the reasons for that. And maybe there are things you miss out on by being a little conservative. I'm not meaning not having enough money or anything. I'm meaning that Georgia, I don't think, has promised a lot of things that it couldn't deliver.
Yeah, that's true. But here's the point that I think that Radi, you, me, we don't know what Georgia's doing. We don't know what Texas is doing. We don't know anything because you probably don't want that out there. That's your own business. You know what I'm saying? So, but the reality is, as many times as Kirby has come out publicly and said what we need to stay competitive, then Georgia's spending what's necessary, and it's just going to be up to see how much it's going to get to the point where they're, supply and demand. But hopefully they're going to find some way to help supplement this a little bit. But anybody that sits there and reads a dog vent and thinks that you're not paying these guys a substantial amount of money probably, needs, I don't know what to say to make them feel. But the reality is it's happening. It's there. These kids are making good money, and more power to them.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the Georgia quarterback Carson Beck goes and gets a Lamborghini that made national news. So I imagine this would make national news as well. But it's not like he didn't have enough money to get it. He did. It wasn't given to him because he's making decent money. Quote from the Florida Athletic Department. Spokesman Steve McClain regarding the lawsuit says, "We do not comment on ongoing litigation, and neither the University Athletic Association nor the university are named in the complaint. The University Athletic Association will provide for Coach Napier's personal counsel, and we will direct all questions to those representatives." So they're dodging this as well. They should. Coach, you pointed out that they were, damage control. This is absolutely damage control. And I did see one report. I was trying to find it. I just saw the quote on Twitter. I didn't see the original story, but apparently, according to one report that is out there, Rashada did tell Kirby Smart that he was going through with this thing, and Kirby did not stand in his way. And again, if you're about to sue the top booster, the NIL, and the head coach of another team, I'm sure you go sit down with Kirby Smart. Kirby runs a very tight ship. He does not like to be blindsided, and I'm sure Rashada did that.
I think for sure they told him it's just a question of when. I mean, is that before?
Yeah.
So
probably recently.
Does it say when?
I didn't. I got to find that report, and I'll look it up maybe during one of the breaks here real quick. I
also the other piece of this, though, Radi, is that just from the standpoint of Billy Napier, things already weren't going well at Florida in terms of wins and losses. And so if the decision makers at Florida need reasons to move forward on whatever they want to do with Napier beyond this upcoming season, this may be what they need to get that train moving too.
Yeah, I mean, Billy probably calling his accountant and say, "Hey, how much of this am I going to have to take out of my settlement when I get fired?"
Very true. That's good. I hadn't thought about that angle of it, Dayne. That's a good point.
I think Billy's making a lot of progress with his team. Is it going to be enough? With the schedule they got.
It could be 4-5 4-2, 5-1 going into the second half of the season. But the second half of the season, Florida is god awful.
I like Billy Napier as a coach. I've said that ever since they hired him. I just think
you have.
He hired not only a bad staff, terrible. I mean, it's just you just shake your head when you see some of these guys he hired, and they've gone through them and made some big changes. But then he hired another strength coach, and the guy stayed there about a month, and then he left.
Yeah, that wasn't good. He has had some ill luck there, and again, the Georgia fans are quite happy with that.
Here's that Florida schedule real fast.
Oh yeah, so the Miami game will be very interesting. Then of course they should beat Samford. Texas A&M will be interesting. They could win at Mississippi State.
Roddy, you say they should beat Samford is a difficult matchup for a lot of these teams.
Beat them before down there in the swamp.
Yeah. They should. I'm not saying will.
Yeah, they should. I mean, definitely, but they definitely should beat them.
Then they got UCF, but look at this: Tennessee, hosting Kentucky, playing Georgia, going to Texas, hosting LSU, hosting Ole Miss, and then going at FSU. That's like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like 7 losses in a row.
I'm just saying their easy games are UCF and Samford, and both of those are losable.
Yeah. So
I'd say UCF and Miami are both pretty comparable team. Depends on what kind of quarterback UCF gets in the portal or how they pick one up. But that's a tough. Ours is tough.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, but I like where Georgia's sitting with its talent facing this team, and as you say, the assistant coaches. Right. You also mentioned, this high-priced lawyer, very talented guy, being Christopher Columbus and discovering a lot of new things. Dayne, you mentioned that in the lawsuit they mentioned how much Miami was going to offer. The discovery on both sides on this could be very interesting. There might be some stuff. I'm not saying it'll ever go to trial, but it could be. Whatever. A lawsuit like this opens up a lot of text messages, a lot of phone records, a lot of stuff like that. This could get very, very interesting.
Look up at Rusty Hardin and see what they say about him.
I'm doing it right now. I do wonder, will Florida step in and try to avoid this going? Will there be some settlement out of this just to stop it?
That's the point I was getting to. I can imagine going, hey, look, here's $4 million, go away.
The one thing about it that you read that statement, but said that Florida or the University or the athletic department is a name, but the collective's named in it, isn't it?
Yes, sir. But remember, they're technically not part of it. But they say the University of Florida and the Athletic Association itself are not named, but they're going to provide for the head coach's council. So, yeah, I like this one from Goat Dog. Florida turmoil tastes like lamb chops. Yeah, and that's why I was this is a Georgia show, but it is about a Georgia quarterback as a current Georgia quarterback who was committed to your arch rival. And I remember when Rashada was committed to Florida. They were talking about Billy got his guy. He's going to go 4-0. This quarterback's going to go 4-0 against Georgia or 3-0. Georgia doesn't have anything like him. I mean, the crowing from the Florida fans was up there. And again, Georgia fans crow the same way. It's the great part of college football when you got to commit that you really like. You think this guy is going to take you to the promised land. Now he's actually on the other team, and Georgia's got their best running back. Georgia's got Trevor Etienne. So it could be a situation where Georgia is up so much against Florida in Jacksonville that they bring in this backup quarterback who Florida's NIL just paid a bunch of money to, and he throws a touchdown pass out of the backfield to their number one running back who was on their team last year. It will never happen, but I'm just saying it could get really really ugly for Florida. And that's why the Georgia fans are all excited. Again, the comment section there from Greg and David and MG, they're happy.
That thing can't be settled before this. I mean, he's requesting a jury trial, so we'll see how that works.
They should do it, Halloween weekend in North Florida. Week leading up to Georgia, Florida. Do it then. Here is some of the representative cases of high-profile figures from Rusty Hardin listed on their website. Warren Moon, Wade Boggs, Steve Francis, Rudy Tomjanovich, Roger Clemens, Jerry Eversole, Calvin Murphy played for the Houston Rockets. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Houston-based law firm.
I mean, you remember when Warren Moon had that big lawsuit, good Lord. And then
Eversole's too. Come on.
And Wade Boggs. You talking about discovery. Wade Boggs found out that girl was going to his games with him and telling him what kind of panties she was wearing. I mean, that was in the discussion.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. Yeah. See, this is why having coaches on. He remembers all this stuff. I only remember the Eversole one. Wow. But that is a big time lawyer who's going to. He is a wrecking ball. So I did not realize that.
How about
we have coach on, man?
How about seriously give me some love picking out who the lawyer was? And I figured once I saw that was. Well, that was
the lawyer. It went right over my head. I didn't realize that he was that dude. And
that's not my only good thing I've added today. But I tell you, once I saw his name, I thought this is going to be serious business here because this guy knows how to deal.
Well, and Coach, if this brings up some money in a case that's won, you're going to be having some NIL lawyers pop up, and that's their specialty.
Oh yeah, hey, they could see it's look. Give me some help here, Rusty. Come on.
Absolutely, I love it. Speaking of help, if you need some help, I want you to go out to our friends at Academia Brewing Company and say, "Hey, help me out. Give me some good beer. Give me some good food." And they are going to be able to do that. They always have fantastic food and drinks out there, and they always have a fun night. We mentioned last week that they had a new special. It was their ahi tuna topped with pickled onions or arugula and their special house sauce. They always have great food specials. And so I tell people all the time, it's like, look, you can go out there and try all the great beer. And I mean, the beer's so good that it's bottled and sold all over the state. Seen Academia Brewing and just about every liquor or package store you go into, you go down the beer section, you'll see Academia Brewing Company because everyone likes their beer. But their food is good. So even if they didn't have beer, you can go out there as a great restaurant and you'll be very, very happy. And there's not a cooler place to be watching baseball games than Academia Brewing Company. The drink specials, the margaritas, the outdoor patios, you just can't beat it. While you're on that side of town, swing by our friends over at Athens Ford. You need to check them out as well. Athens Ford, they have over 800 vehicles on the lot. They have discounts for recent graduates, of which we know a lot, current students, of which we also know a lot, veterans, active military personnel. You get an extra discount on top of all the other discounts you get. Their May specials are going on right now. Lots of either finance deals, or I've seen $8,000, $6,000, and $14,000 off MSRP, or 3.9% financing for 72 months, 0% financing for 60 months. There's all sorts of fantastic deals going out there, but I could throw a bunch of numbers at you and all the discounts and stuff, and they'll just wash over the top of your head. You're like, look, Roddy, I'm driving to work. I'm listening to you guys on a podcast. I don't have time to write this down or research it. Just remember this. When I sat down with Athens Ford the first time, I said, what do you want to get across to people? What makes you different? And they said, our lifetime powertrain warranty. Not every Ford dealership does that. Not very few dealerships have that. So if you buy a vehicle from Athens Ford, or you buy even a used vehicle under 80,000 miles, you'll basically have the lifetime powertrain warranty. And that is very special and very unique to Athens Ford. So hit them up when you get a chance.
Couple things of note, and we are going to get to the Heisman hype in that conversation. That's what we had planned to do, but it's been kind of a newsworthy day around Georgia athletics and college football. First, we need to discuss that Georgia is playing baseball right now in the SEC tournament against LSU. As we're speaking, Georgia down 5-1 to LSU in the top of the sixth inning. So the Dogs will need to come back there to get past LSU. The other piece of news in Georgia athletics, a new women's golf coach has been hired. Josh Brewer out. Erica Brennan comes in from USF. And one of the things that is just intriguing to me is you wake up and Kirby Smart is now a veteran in the athletics department over at Butts Mayer. I think there are only 3 coaches at Georgia that have been there longer than Kirby Smart at this point. So it's been kind of a changing of the guard here in the last couple of years with some legendary retirements and some programs that need a little bit of a boost. And that seems to be what this is for women's golf with Erica Brennan. Very successful at USF.
I hope she goes after our buddy Brent's daughter, Georgia, down in the South.
Yeah, so Brent's daughter's tied for the lead going into the day, so it'd be great.
Yeah, so anyway, there are some homegrown talent, Coach Brennan. Reach out to Brent Blunt, get his daughter on board.
So, Coach, you made a comment on a show maybe it was last week, I don't remember exactly, where we were just talking about preseason Heisman favorites, and you made what I thought was a salient comment about JT Daniels was a Heisman favorite too, and you didn't mean it maliciously. It was just he had all these preseason expectations, and you see what happened. He didn't end up finishing that season, and that's totally possible with preseason expectations. So just in general, when these odds come out about Heisman, and Carson Beck's right there at the top of all the Heisman watch list right now, as a coach, does that mean anything to you?
I don't think the coaches get too caught up in it. Certainly is something that if you're going to have a big year, it doesn't hurt you to start out on top like that. And I certainly feel like he's going to have a big year, and not only because of his ability, but the supporting cast that he's got around him and the people that the knowledge of the system, the schedule, the exposure. He's right up there, but it's a long year on that Heisman Trophy. I mean, you look at who would have thought that Daniels would have won it last year.
Well, let me just run through a couple of these names on this Heisman odds list. I'm looking at one from DraftKings here. And I mean, if you just want to give me quick hitters on what you think of these guys. So Carson Beck is the favorite right now. Right behind him is Quinn Ewers at Texas.
I like Ewers. I mean, I think people are talking about Texas, being such a good team. But let me just tell you, look at the firepower they lost. I mean, they lost 2 receivers in the top 40. They're counting on a running back coming back off of a really big knee injury. Defensive line, look at those outside backer, defensive interior guy that they lost. So kind of like, Georgia, though, they'll reload. But bottom line, Ewers got a good supporting cast, and its biggest problem is to win the job from Arch Manning, I would think.
Replacing Bo Nix at Oregon, Dan Lanning has Dylan Gabriel.
Well, he's going to put up some mammoth stats out there. They have a really good scheme, and Dylan is a master at that. You go back to UCF when he first started. I remember when he came in here for an official visit, and the coaches were telling us about him, and they're a little worried about his height, but saying this guy's a phenom. He's another Marcus Mariota out of Hawaii, and but he didn't come here. He went to UCF, and then he went to Oklahoma and had some big years. But there's a great example to me that I want to make a point that he might not be a legit pro quarterback, maybe a guy that could play, but maybe not a starter. But he can make more this year at Oregon probably than he would, way more than he would being drafted in the 6th, 7th, 8th round.
That's a great point.
So he's going out there, and he and Phil Knight got a good little combo going there.
Behind him on the list, I'm looking at Jalen Milroe, Alabama.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like this guy was talking about potential. It's either going to be shit houses or castles with him. I mean, he's either going to be really good or really bad. I mean, that's the way things have happened for him. He can make 4th and 32 against Auburn, and then, he can't throw the ball in the ocean from a rowboat sometime. But interesting new scheme, new coach that throws the ball a lot more than what they've done. I don't know if they'll utilize it, but if I were coaching him, I would run an RPO and let the quarterback design runs until he couldn't breathe anymore, because he's a human rocket. And if they utilize him like that, I think he could really go up, shoot up the boards for the Heisman.
So you sense a theme with these odds, that it's the teams that are projected to be the best, their quarterbacks. That's what this award has turned into historically. There's a couple.
You got to put up the numbers.
I mean, Devontae Smith won it at Alabama instead of Mac Jones. So it's possible to have a skilled player do it, but it's just unlikely. Because, Coach, I'm seeing Will Howard at Ohio State, coming to transfer from Kansas State, is 5th best in Heisman odds. But within the top 20 is Julian Sayin. So they're saying could be some shakeup at quarterback at Ohio State if things don't go well.
Yeah, I just don't know what the philosophy is going to be there. Day's the head coach, but Chip Kelly calling the plays. What will they do? This Howard guy was a running quarterback at Kansas State. He ran a lot of quarterback counter, a lot of sweep, quarterback draw. You don't see that in the Ohio State offense, but maybe now that Chip Kelly's the architect of it, they might use that more. And of course, Sayan was a very highly recruited kid out of California. But let me say this, their supporting cast is there. Just look at their roster. Yeah. Look at how many guys could have gone pro, maybe not really high, but some of them pretty high. And you talk about some people that got an NIL budget now. They're Saks Fifth Avenue compared to Target.
Very, very true.
I like Target too. I like Target.
So you have me curious. I'm pulling up I'm using PFF. This is random. So the preseason 2021 Heisman watch list. So kind of the favorites heading into 2021. Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. Sam Howell at North Carolina. De'Aaron King at Miami. DJ Uiagalelei at Clemson. Bryce Young at Alabama. That ended up being salient. Same with CJ Stroud at Ohio State. And then JT Daniels. So there you go, Coach. I think that's the point you're making. That for every time you get it right, there's a De'Aaron King in the top 5 where you're not very close.
Yeah, I mean, that's – I think we've handled this pretty good. Let's hit some of these Georgia questions. Unless you want to ask something else. I mean, is there somebody else on there that you're worried about?
It's a quarterback battle at USC with Miller Moss and Jaden Maeva, who flirted with Georgia. So they have the same odds if we don't know who the starting quarterback will be. And if just people are interested, Kate Klubnik plus 5,000 at Clemson. Georgia will see him in the first game.
What about the kid at Georgia Tech? I guarantee he's going to put some numbers up.
Not in the top 30 as I see it.
Jackson Dart's on the list.
Jackson Dart's high. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU's high. Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, I think, is intriguing.
Oh, I didn't think about him.
I like Riley Leonard. I mean, to me, that was one of the best best portal moves that anybody can make, picking him up, and he will definitely thrive in that offense. They brought back the coordinator that the coach at Notre Dame. They were both coaches together at Cincinnati, and then he left Cincinnati and went to LSU with the coaching staff down there, Coach Kelly, and now he's come back to Notre Dame. So all of a sudden now Cortez Hankton, who was here, is a co-coordinator at LSU now.
Yeah, Hankton, he's working really hard on getting C.J. Wiley out of Georgia, out of Milton, one of the top wide receivers in the nation, who's a Peach State kid, and he's got I know at least his mom went there. So Georgia's looking very good to land C.J. Wiley, but you got to keep an eye on Cortez Hankton because he's got a couple first-round draft picks.
Still call up and say, you're wasting your time, baby.
There you go.
Put one of those what do you call it?
Future cast.
What do you call it?
A future cast.
Yeah,
like
put a future cast out for him, and you won't be wrong.
There you go. Hey, I did one last night for Travis Smith Jr. That's a talented kid too. So if they get Travis Smith Jr. and C.J. Wiley,
where's Travis? Where's he from?
Travis Smith. He's also from Georgia. So good.
Yeah. I didn't realize the junior. I thought it was just Travis Smith. So
yeah,
here we go.
They're loaded. The whole point of this is that Carson Beck is number 1 on the list, and I think that Carson Beck, with setting the school completion record in his first year as a starter, bodes well. Looking at what they have in the offensive backfield and on the edges, and what I can just see this being Carson Beck building on that. Maybe not the same completion percentage record because that's just tough to do, but if you look at the tools he has, a wide receiver and some of the backs he can throw to out of the backfield and the tight ends, and Mike Bobo loves to score. I know people give Mike all sorts of hell, but I'm like, this was a guy who loves to be in the 40s and 50s, and he does not call off the dogs.
Throw a little damper on that is probably 4 games is all he'll be playing in the third and fourth quarter.
I was going to get there because I was going to say, Coach always tells us the defense in the second half has it easier because they get up by a lot. And the defense is going to know that the opposing offense has to throw the ball a lot. So he may not be out there a lot. I'm saying he's got the potential. He's got the car to drive. He could win the race.
Kirby,
will they let him?
Got Kirby and Bobo looking into the future. They're going to want to get Gunner and Rashada and Ryan Pugliski in there. I'm just telling you now, don't sleep on Ryan. Do not sleep on him.
I never would.
I told you the same thing about Jalen Carter. I told you about over the years. Do not sleep on this guy.
Well, and even if Carson Beck's not playing into the third or fourth quarter, let's say it's the games that he is, Georgia's going to have a couple of these games. It should be easier wins. They're going to be tighter than you think. South Carolina was that last year. Auburn was that last year. That's usually meaning that Georgia's not moving the ball as well. That happens.
Yeah, it's hard to – I mean, look at these pro teams that have bad days. I mean, it's hard to go out there and, just like Jack Nicklaus doesn't shoot a 68 every time. It's hard. So, we got a good squad, though.
Roddy, the recruiting note that made me feel old yesterday, because I know this happens to all of us, when I saw that Chris Davis that ran back to kick six for Auburn, is getting offers already. Good Lord.
Is that right? The kick six guy?
The kick six guy's son is beginning to get offers now.
I'm guaranteed Kirby's on him. That had to be. That had to be all.
Hey, you talk about feeling old. I mean, I remember interviewing Justice Haynes as like a ninth grader. I'm like, hey, I know I covered your dad. So it's there's a lot of legacy kids out there that just makes you feel older and older all the time.
Well, he's probably the feature back heading into this year for Alabama.
Oh, yeah. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
we did get a number of questions come in. Dane, when we come back from the break, I'll let you start on the dog vent, and then we'll get to the ones that came in from TikTok and Facebook. But before we get there, I want to mention our friends over at Your Pie. They have wings now. Nothing goes better with pizza than wings. And sometimes you're like, hey, I'm going to the pizza joint. They're like, oh, I want wings. Well, now you can get both there. So if you want to try some of the fantastic wings at Your Pie, they have a bunch of different styles. The one on the first one they talk about is the hot honey barbecue. If you've ever had Mike's Hot Honey, it's phenomenal. I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor of ours and I like the folks that run it. I'm telling you, I've had these. They are great. The Mike's Hot Honey is fun stuff. They've done pizzas in the past with the Mike's Hot Honey, and it's just, you want that salty, sweet, sour, all those different flavors, fat that make up that give you that taste profile. Well, this checks a lot of boxes because you got the protein of the wings, then you get the charred outside, and then the sweetness, and then the heat is just phenomenal. So when you get a chance, try the new wings at Your Pie. If you order today, this is a Tuesday. If you use the app, you get double points. Here's the thing: you don't even have to get them today. You can order for tomorrow. You can order for next week. You can order. I think it's within 6 days. So you can order in the future and then go pick it up or have it delivered. But because you ordered for it today, you get the double points, and the points get you free food very fast. Also, I'm going to mention our friends at myperfectfranchise.net. There are a lot of people out there, like the Your Pies are a franchise, right? So you're like, there's a ton of different franchises out there. How do I know what is the right franchise for me? I want to get out of my dead-end job. I want to get out of this rat race. I want to have more time with my family. I want to be in charge of my life. The easiest way to do that is reach out to myperfectfranchise.net. Talk to Andy Ludecky. He will walk you through it. We had one of our more famous posters on the board reach out to me the other day saying, hey, who's that entrepreneur guy? Andy Ludecky. Here's his contact information. It won't cost you anything to talk to him. Tell him what you have, what you're looking to do, what you want, and he will tell you whether or not franchising is right for you. And if it is, 3,000. Think about how many different places and different businesses those are. It's not 300. It's 10 times that. So there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of different opportunities out there for you to try out, see what you like, get something to work out. And Hey, doesn't cost you anything. So reach out to Andy. He'll take care of it. Oh, you're muted there, Dayne.
Coach, this is from Eddie in Ackworth. You seem very high on Ryan Puglisi. Are you that high on Nate Frazier at running back?
I'm higher than a kite. I mean, you're talking about James Cook type ability here, maybe a little stouter, but number one all-purpose back in the country. I mean, rated by every website, the number one running back for being able to catch the ball. You look in that All-Star game, first quarter, they threw him a wheel route for a touchdown. I mean, the only thing that's going to be a little different for him is that he's got to come in June. He wasn't here for spring. He's got a new coach that didn't recruit him, and he's going to be his running back coach, but that's going to work out. But bright future there for that guy. I mean, he's a can't-miss player.
Update from baseball, Georgia trailing 5-1 in the top of the 7th to LSU. Coach, when you have a player on another team at Georgia, you're the football coach, but there's someone on another team, a Charlie Condon, that has become a legend in that sport. It's going to be one of the best Georgia players forevermore at baseball. Does that help football at all? Or are there ways that superstars on other teams at UGA help the football team?
Well, you always like, and both Kirby and Mary Beth being ex-athletes here, I mean, they both support all the programs. But I think it's always good to see that, you got some national attention on players. But, there was occasion where we might recruit a guy that played baseball and try to get him to play both ways. But as far as playing playing football and baseball. But now the demands year-round, it's very difficult to play two sports. I mean, all the practice time they have in the spring for football. And, I think Kirby's role as far as telling them is if you can be a starter and not take away from your preparation for our team, if you can start on another team, they let them do it.
I'm trying to remember. It's good to have that. I'm trying to remember more some of the recent two-sport athletes at Georgia. I mean, Fred Gibson's always one that comes to my brain.
Larry Brown. Larry was the heck of a tight end, and I used to accuse him of playing basketball so he wouldn't have to lift weights.
It's 13 minutes left in the second half. Here comes Larry Brown. Oh, look, their number one scorer just got shut down. Oh, look, he's in the third row.
Larry Brown, basketball. Larry, he was doing a good job coaching. Now he's coaching over there at Oglethorpe, and he did get in the weight room, no question about it. But
he was strong.
He came in there and helped our basketball team. He was good, and I guarantee you, Champ Bailey and Terrence Edwards, they could have played. Terrence played a little bit, but
I like
they had an intramural team here one time with Champ Bailey and some other guys on it. And I went over there and they played like 8-minute quarters. Champ at 38. It was scary.
Coach, a couple of years ago, I had a student on campus. I was talking to him, and he said that he was on an intramural team, got matched up against Darnell Washington.
I mean, that was tough. Now, you go out there and see that big guy.
I don't think he got any rebounds on Darnell. I think Darnell took care of the paint that day.
Back when I was in college, they used to have this thing called Big Four Sports Day where they would have they'd mix it up between Carolina State, Wake Forest, and Duke, and every spring you'd go play different intramural sports against the other teams. And you couldn't play, obviously, if you played a varsity sport, you couldn't play in that. But they had things like tennis and anyhow softball. And we played Carolina's softball team. And Billy Cunningham was a senior, and I was like a freshman at State. And I struck out, and his nickname was Kangaroo Kid. Remember, he used to jump up and everything. So I struck him out 3 times, and the third time, one of our guys on the beach, jump for me, Kangaroo, jump for me. It was a real bad. I mean, people aren't interested in that, but I remember striking them. It was fun.
kangaroo out. I love it.
Before we get to your question, this is my last thing before I get to your questions, Roddy. We need to give a shout out to Georgia's women's tennis team for making it to the national championship series. Tough loss to Texas A&M and Stillwater, but what a season they had.
Yeah, congratulations to Drake. I mean, to take over, he was a big-time assistant for Jeff Wallace and took the team to the conference championship and then goes out there to Stinkwater, of all places they got to play, playing in Stillwater. And then they had a rain delay and had to move indoors. But, they beat A&M 3 times this year. And then, give A&M credit. They did what they had to and beat us. But tremendous year for Georgia tennis, women's tennis. And I think men's tennis is going to be okay. Everybody knows about us losing the 2 stars before the season started. But what a great career Manny Diaz had.
I hate that when you beat them 3 times, they get you once and it gets them a championship. And that's just,
I know that's terrible.
Ain't right.
Well, Georgia's done a lot to get the NCAA tournament back to Athens, so maybe it won't be in Stillwater in future years.
I think, coming in 26.
Yep.
All right, Kirk DD asks, I'm seeing a lot of players tweet out pictures of their individual workouts. Do they all have personal trainers or coaches?
I think when they leave, and most of these have to be outside the here. I don't think you would ever do that here. I don't think Sinclair would let that happen.
No, these are – I've seen the ones he's talking about. These are not anywhere near Athens.
Yeah. So, usually these guys have somebody working with them and training them. So, I would say most of them do.
Yeah. I know we always talk about the fact that the quarterbacks have like a quarterback coach or guy that helped them in high school, and they'll go back and talk to them and stuff like that. But it's real easy to have a trainer. And a lot of them, these guys actually go to a training camp. So they go back and, to their hometown and work out with the guy they used to before. So,
yeah, I mean, I would encourage that, just to know that you don't lose that buff. You've gone home and you're still working out. And I know when we had the COVID situation, Kirby was getting those kids to send their workouts, back to Sinclair and the coaches so they could see what they were doing.
Oh, they still do it. It's not just COVID related. They're like, hey, you going on spring break? Show me a picture of a workout. Show me you did something. So that's still
back when you were there, it's like, show me a picture of who you're dating or something.
Yes, sir. Athens bound. The question is, what does year 2 look like for Mike Bobo? That's all.
I mean, I feel like he's got to be a little bit more settled as far as the knowledge of the system, just because it wasn't something he's used to. He'd call plays in different ways as far as the nomenclature, what you call them and everything. And so I think, and he was certainly comfortable doing it last year, but you got to be you might see a little bit more of maybe his own stamp on something they might add that they didn't have last year. But I wouldn't trade Mike for any quarterback coach or offensive coordinator in the country.
For as much as we know Georgia can air it out, I do think some games this year will dictate, get on the ground, run that clock, get some plays moving along, and stomp on the throats of the other team that way. With Georgia's big offensive line, there just aren't many defensive fronts that can stand up against that.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to be balanced, that's for sure, but take what they give you.
Mike Smith had a question last week, and he sent in a question this week and says, no, I'm not your neighbor, or not your old neighbor. So I did have a question because I used to have a guy named Mike Smith in my neighborhood. This is not the same one. We touched on this one already, Mike, at the beginning of the show. It says, how does the Jaden Rashada lawsuit hurt Florida? It's just a really bad look. It's bad and could get worse. So, but
yeah, and what's bad for them is just the fact that their program is lower than Wellman. You're right now on top of it. I mean,
yeah.
Hey, we got a good women's softball team. But seriously, I shouldn't have said that. But
we saw this when Georgia was struggling, Coach. You pick up the other schools because you're a fan of the school. So if any other team is doing well, you get behind them.
For your rival. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yep.
The only thing that always does bother me when somebody gets hurt, when they're, because it's a kid, that bothers me. I'm never happy about that.
But no one ever should be.
One thing is that it makes this is tougher for Florida.
If he's going to get hurt, he needs to get hurt the week they're playing us. So.
In a lot of years in the previous structure with divisions, you could win the right game and put you on a trajectory to win your side of the division and make the conference championship. With that not happening anymore, just being the top two teams, a little bit tougher to elevate beyond what you currently are as a team.
Yeah, but hey, you could still make the playoffs not being in the top two here. So, and you don't have to play another game in the championship. So the only problem is you probably would have to play a first game instead of getting a bye, but it's kind of a knockoff there. But this whole season is going to be, the unknown. I mean, nobody's ever been involved with this 12-team playoff. So going to be a lot of ups and downs as far as who's going to be the 12th.
Question from Big Sky.
Bring you two gurus here. What would you say the over-under number for the Big Ten and the SEC out of the 12? One at a time, Dane. Give me your
8.5.
Good Lord.
I think that's the over-under.
I was going to say 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, if it went 8, I mean, some of these other programs would probably, good Lord.
I thought it was 6, 3 from each.
3 teams from each for sure. But you got to figure Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, or Washington, and then Georgia, Texas, and somebody else.
So I figured, but today's point, the way you see that kind of cluster of all those teams that have been ranked in the top 12 over the last 3, 4, 5 years, most of them are in the same 2 programs or same 2 conferences now. So
it's going to be some weird discussion because if an LSU, let's say they have 3 losses, and you're looking at one of the Big 12 teams that has 1 or 2 losses, how do you compare that?
Or an ACC team,
So what do you have? You have to have. There's a conference champion. How many of those make it?
Those are the automatics, right? So that's the 4 automatics.
Well, so you could have a Big 12 champion with 2 losses.
Very true. You're right, Coach. This is going to be a learning year. We do have a question about the first game of the season from Big Sky Dog. Glad to see Big Sky Dog back. That's been a frequent question asker over the years. Who is Coach's early pick to be the mouth-watering player of the day versus Clemson? This is an early pick, Coach. This is 103 days out. You got to pick a mouth-watering player.
Well,
early lean.
I'm just not. You got to give me a little learning process here. For me to say it's a mouth-watering would have to be some thinking about it more than maybe I'm capable of right now, because I don't want to leave anybody out. But I could say Carson Beck.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That would have been my pick too. I think he's going to get him in the dome with those wide receivers, and as well as Georgia's usually geeked up for that first game. That's going to be the guy.
As much as you can compare this to the last time that Georgia played Clemson, that was such a defensive game, and it took a pick 6. There just wasn't any offense happening. So it seems like Georgia's more primed to put a ton of points on the board here, and Clemson's going to struggle with it.
We were trying to find our way on offense. We were really looking to build our offensive attack, and we played not to lose once we got ahead on that pick. So I think that's not our style now as much. We're a little bit more wide open. And I'm worried about all these transfers that Dabo's going to get this summer.
You say that, and we got some questions here in the comments that we'll need to get to, but there was actually Let me find it.
Well, I want to stick up for Dabo for 1 second, because one of the things that he said, and he makes a lot of comments now that people jump on, but he said there's just not a lot of players in the portal that are good enough to play at Clemson. And I think that's totally true. The majority of players that transfer aren't good enough to play at a Clemson or a Georgia or somewhere like that.
Exactly. And he makes a good point, and I'm a good friend of Dabo's. I just think that when you lose a player and you got a chance to get a player that's like him from another school, like we've done, receiver-wise or DB-wise, look at Tyke Smith. Look at these two receivers we got last year and then the ones this year. Really, if they could, I'm just telling you right now, unless they got some running backs that they've kept in the weight room and hadn't used, I got to think they could take a running back and help them. Clemson.
Well, that was a question from CCUGA. It says, why doesn't Clemson take transfers? It seems stupid to me.
It's just the philosophy. Dabo likes to bring them in there and build them up. You can't blame. He's been very successful up until the last, 3 years? Or has it been 3 years since they made the playoffs?
Yeah.
I know 2, but
here's another one from Del Monaco. Again, another former.
Monaco. That's good. What kind of steak we have in there?
I thought that was a great handle. Del Monaco's sent us plenty of questions over the years. What will be the biggest problem for Oklahoma and Texas entering the SEC?
Just a reality, Bill. It's just really going to be a big shock. Fans, everybody. Fortunately, the two head coaches have backgrounds. Sark was at Alabama. He knows what it's like, and also the coach at Oklahoma was in the playoffs. He knows the kind of players that Alabama and Georgia and all these teams have. So, but the difference is there's not going to be, of course, Kansas and Kansas State have got to the point where they're right up there with them, but there's not any easy games anymore for, and Oklahoma's kind of like us getting penalized being the home team for the Georgia-Florida game. They don't have but 3 home games in the conference this year. So their Texas-Oklahoma game, they're the home team. So they got, 5 road games.
Where was the last one?
Well, one of them's a neutral site. My bad.
Okay, I copied the question, but I didn't copy the person that asked it, so I apologize to who that was. The question was, which of the 2 freshman tight ends will see the field first? Okay, so that Georgia's got Jaden Riddell and Colton Heinrich, both two big boys, had a good spring. Which of those 2 do you think hits the field first? Or can we even guess at this point?
A lot of it has to do with, are you using 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, or are you using 11 where you're just playing 1? I think the one kid from Kansas City is maybe a little faster. The other kid's, a little bigger maybe. So they're both very competent and going to help us. But the problem is we got a kid coming in from Stanford who was all conference out there, and he's going to be right in the mix. So we're in good shape there.
And Lawson Lucky ain't going to let a lot of people take his snaps. That's
for sure. Yeah. Well, they're just asking those 2. Hey, I think Lawson's going to be out there just like Delp was with Bowers, I think.
I agree. Last question from Alan Hampton. I believe Branson Robinson has the potential to be RB1 when he's healthy. What are the chances he'll be ready versus Clemson?
Well, it's been a long, arduous deal that's not necessarily anything except the injury itself, which is kind of encapsulates the whole thing. The fact it takes so long to come back from that dislocation and all. And he can't work in the weight room too much because he's so thick. Anyhow, weight room wise, he's better than anybody in their program as far as strength. So, he he did some good mobility in the spring. He looked good. So, but you got to think that they got to be real careful during two-a-days. I don't even know why I say that anymore. We don't have two-a-days during fall camp. He's going to have to, get his legs underneath him and get contact ready, to feel confident. I can't see him being the starter just because of ETN and Robinson and all these other guys. But down, very quickly, he'll be a big part of the offense. So,
don't have to bring him back by then, but he'll be back. The kid's driven.
Yeah,
Coach.
He'll be. When I say the starter, I'm talking about the first game. But I guarantee he could walk in any running back room in America and be a player. I mean, and so could ETN.
Yeah, he's a star. Coach, you got a joke to end the show with?
Are we already to that point?
We are.
Good
That's
Lord.
an hour, Coach.
Did you have to check your clock? You didn't believe me?
No, I mean, I'm not checking. I'm just going to make sure I don't miss these jokes. So these guys were talking about calling people nickname, and everybody had one. And this one guy said, I call my wife Dozen. And they said, what do you mean by that? He said, she doesn't work. She doesn't cook. She doesn't clean up.
Oh, my God.
So here's the other one. Here, Lois Lane is laying in a bed with Clark Kent, and they're talking about a lot of things. And she said, I just want you to know that I've always been faithful to you. But one time I actually went out with Superman, and, we ended up making love. And he said, that's okay. He said, I really never have told you, but I am Superman. She said, really? He said, yeah, I'm Superman. And he started giving her some examples. And she said, well, that's good. And she said, can I ask you one more question? And he said, sure. He said, does Batman count too?
Oh, that's good. That's a good one.
So I have one more because these are short, but I just got to get to it here because I can't remember all this. But if anybody wants to cut the show off, they can. But
I know Jermaine King likes that. He knows his Superman and Batman. What's the other?
So
Agrees.
this prostitute working this convention and center out in Vegas, and she goes in this place and realizes it's actually a stutterer convention, and so she can't figure out what she's going to do, and these guys just can't talk to her very good. So finally, she just goes up to these three guys at the bar and said, "Look, I'm just having a bad night. I can't get anybody." Said, "I'll just let. If one of you can tell me where you're from and not stutter, I'll let you go upstairs and have a free night with me." And so looks at the first guy and he says, Cleveland. He said,
oh,
no chance.
No chance.
So the next one goes up, Baltimore. He said, no chance.
Right two.
And so the third one gets there and says, Miami. She said, okay, come on. So they go upstairs and take care of business, and he gets ready to leave. But he said, beach. Miami Beach, baby.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Your first joke reminded me of there's these Australian guys, and they have people call in and talk about nicknames, and some of them are really good. Like they said, they had one guy whose long arm was longer than the other, and everyone called him Clock. And I was like, man, that's just mean.
That's pretty good.
But the one that got me, and I actually spit coke out my nose, was there's a one-eyed guy they called Kith. And I'm like, Kith, K-E-T. Like, yeah, his real name is Keith, but he's missing an eye. I'm like, I'm not going to Australia. Those people are mean. they are mean. I was dying laughing. I'm
like the farmer, they were talking about a different kid's name, and they finally said, call this one kid Porky. He says, that because he's so fat? He said, no, because he likes to hit on pigs.
Hey, folks, if you don't have a good group of guy friends, this is what happens when you have guy friends. You get the worst nicknames, and you can never pick your nickname. Stop trying it. It doesn't happen. You will be assigned a nickname based on either something you did or some physical thing that we can make fun of you about. That's how guys roll. That's who we are.
Hey, and I apologize to everybody. Hey, I'm by myself 6.5 days a week, except for you guys. So, hey,
please.
I got to throw these jokes out here just to keep.
We love the jokes, Coach. Those are good. All right. Grab some more. We will bring them up next Tuesday at noon, and we will see you folks then. Talk to you later.